Hello, everyone. Hi to the people online and people currently in person. I'm Mohammed. I'm from Ghana, and I do the community communications for the Wikidata development team. And this is supposed to be an editing section with a brief recap of what lexicographical data is. So, a prerequisite is that as a participant, you should already be familiar with some Wikipedia concepts, items, properties, how they come together to form statements. And I have, next slide. Next slide. You could use the remote. So, yes. If you go to this URL, you'll be able to, will this work? Yeah, you will be able to join the outreach dashboard, and I would encourage you to sign up to the outreach dashboard. And then we can see how many edits we are able to make at the end of this conference. Next slide. So a brief, the agenda is pretty straightforward. I'll give you a quick recap of the data model of lexicographical data in general, and I'll show you how to create your first lexeme and some best practices for modeling words in your language. And I will also share with you some resources and tools that make your editing life much easier. And then we do a few edits. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so the lexeme data model, a quick recap. So until 2018, Wikidata was only describing concepts about the world in the form of items. So until 2018, this was what Wikidata was doing. In 2018, we started collecting a new kind of data, which is lexicographical data, or simply lexemes. And whereas concepts have items on Wikidata, lexemes have an LID, so items will start with a Q and lexemes will start with an L. And where you will see differently on a lexeme as compared to an item is you'll see some new terms like what a lemma is, the lexical category. So the lemma is basically the smallest or the shortest form of a word as is used in a dictionary. And we have the lexical category, which is the category in which a word belongs to. So a word could either be a verb, a noun, a pronoun, a preposition, so on and so forth. And of course, the language would be the language of the lexeme. And we have statements to describe the lexeme. They are going to be forms, which is one of the new things you'll see on lexemes that you don't see on items. So forms are basically a representation of how a word would appear in a language, all the various forms of it. And the forms, of course, would have grammatical features, which describe the category of the word. And then you would also find senses, which are the different meanings that a word could take. So a word like mouse could mean mouse, a rodent. It could mean mouse as a computer device. It could even mean mouse as in, describing someone who is shy. So these are the different senses that the word mouse could take. Okay, next slide. So creating, next one forward. Yeah, this one. Okay, so before you start to create a lexeme, first of all, make sure that the lexeme doesn't exist on Wikidata already. So the way you do that is to search for the lexeme, and with items, you simply type the name of the item. Or with lexemes, you search by preceding the word with an L and a column, and that should give you some results. If it doesn't give you some results, proceed and click on the no match found. It usually appears in I think it's gray or yellow. Just click on it and you should be able to find some matches. Okay, so when you go to Wikidata and you look on the left pane, if you are using Vector 2010, with the newest things, it would probably be somewhere under tools. You would find lexicographical data, and then you would see create a new item. Once you click on it, it brings you to this form, and this form allows you to enter the lemma. And if you remember, I said the lemma is the base form of a word. Then you get to enter the language, of course. It could be Swahili, it could be Japani, it could be Zulu. And then you enter the lexical category. So like we said, the lexical category is the grouping of a particular word. It could be a noun, it could be a verb, position, so on and so forth. Once you do that, you click create lexeme. And you get this empty lexeme that is created for you. As you can see, it's just the word that we entered, mouse. The language was English, and then the lexical category is a mouse. It's currently empty. There are no statements on it. You can see senses where we can add sense and we can also add forms. Okay, now take note that not all languages are currently supported on Wikidata for lexemes. So for those languages, once you enter the language, the lexemes language, a new field would automatically appear on the form if that language is only partially supported. And then that new field is spelling variant of the lemma. So you go ahead and use the same language that we entered as the lexemes language and include it in the spelling variant of the lemma. You should be able to proceed and then create the lexeme. Okay, in some cases, you would still find that the spelling variants of the lemma, the lexemes language we entered wouldn't pick up. But there's a way around this. Now, the reason why this would happen to your language could be that there's not a recognized language code for your language yet. But that shouldn't discourage you from creating the lexeme. You can still create the lexeme, but with using, instead of TAE, you just type MIS, which is an unsupported language. And that should give you the chance to move forward on the form and create the lexeme. Okay, so if we do that, assuming that is your language, that is not fully supported, the language will be T, and then the spelling variant is going to be MIS. So this is an example of what it's going to look like if we are just using a made-up word for our example from the previous slide. Okay, so if you have that, now you can add your statement, you can add your sentences, you can add the translation, you can add forms, and really build up the lexeme. Okay, so there are three kinds of statements on a typical lexeme. There is the lexeme level statement, then there is a statement on the census, and then there is a statement on the forms. So these are some examples of statements that are allowed at the lexeme level. So these are statements that go above the census and the forms. So you can see instance of account now It could be described by some source in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and then even a using example of how the word is currently used. Okay, so in this our example, this is what a typical sense for the word mouse will look like, and it takes a form. So the ID for the lexeme is L119, and then this is the first sense. And like I said, the senses tell us the different meanings that the word could take. So this first sense tells us about any small rodents of the genus Mus. Okay, and you will also notice that there are some translations of the description in English in various languages. So these are the glosses of the word. And the glosses are simply the definitions of this sense in different languages. This makes it easy for people who don't speak English and they speak Spanish, for example, or Portuguese to be able to understand what the sense represents. Okay, this is an example of a form for the word that we are currently describing, which this is the second form. Like I said, the forms are the various manifestations of the word. So the plural form of mouse is mice, and then we have a genitive case for mouse, which is mouses. So we can have as many forms depending on the language and depending on the word. Then I usually tell people who are just getting started that try to look at a lexeme that exists that is a bit similar to what you want to create. Take some inspiration from it, and you don't have to start things from scratch. So you can also use a tool called Odia, and Odia would suggest relevant properties that you could put on that lexeme as statement. And try. You don't have to be afraid of breaking anything. You can always edit, and people will be available to help you out if you get stuck. And of course, we have a Telegram channel, and you can also visit the lexicographical data talk page on Wikidata. You can get plenty of help from these sources. Okay, so there are some best practices for modeling words. Of course, this would vary depending on the language. So let's take a look at a few of them. Is the arrow sign?
Use the arrow on the keyboard.
The arrow on the keyboard. Yes. Yes.
It's not working.
Non, je peux te
Okay, so that has now worked, thankfully. The first question you should ask before creating a lexeme is, should this lexeme actually exist? Do I need to create it? And you would probably need an evidence to show that this word exists. So you're not just making up anyway. For well-documented languages like English and the major languages that are well-documented on the internet, particularly, this is a requirement. We really need to show some evidence that this word exists. Yeah, and for less documented languages, there's some wiggle room. So you can show evidence, no, previous slide. So you can show evidence by using any of these qualifiers or others, external identifiers described by sources, reference URLs, or usage examples, or even gloss codes could be used as evidence. Then the lemma of a lexeme should ideally be the representation found in the dictionary. So this should be the base form of the word, like the word running, the base form is run, R-U-N. And of course, this would generally depend on the language. So for languages that have multiple scripts, it's encouraged to add a lemma using all of these scripts on that particular lexeme. I'll show an example later on in the slide. Okay, then for the lexeme level statement, you should add a usage example. The italics didn't cover the usage, but it should be usage example, which is like a sentence from a source that shows how the word is used. And please don't use the usage example on sentences. Don't use them on forms, but they should always be at the lexeme level. This is the current consensus. This is the current consensus that the Wikidata community has established. And especially for well-documented languages, you should try to get some usage examples for them. And you should also include a lexical category. So these are the different forms of the word. So if you are creating a word like run, you should specify if it's a noun or you are creating noun as creating run as a verb or something else. Instance of should also go on the lexeme level, not on the senses or the forms. Okay, so the senses, of course, tell us the different meanings of the lexeme. Therefore, each lexeme should have at least one sense, so that we can at least know what the word means, and you can qualify the sense with this property item for this sense as a first step to connecting this lexeme with other things on Wikidata. Okay, then lastly we have the forms, which should always be referenced at least one form, probably on a usage example statement or on another statement. And of course, we can use the described by source or the attested as and attested with. These two properties look very similar, but they achieve very different goals. Sorry. Okay, then it's recommended to avoid adding a translation between every pair of possible translations. So we add a translation for each particular sense, and you don't have to put all of the 7,000 languages we have in the world as translations. You just have to pick a few, and that should do. Okay. So there are some frequently asked questions that we get from people who are starting to work with lexemes. I'm sure some of you will have them at the back of your mind already, so I'll go through just 4 or 5 of them. The first one is, can I enter dialects of a lexeme? Yes, you can. So as an example, this lexeme is about color in English, which has different spelling variants, right? So color in British English and Canadian English and the US English. So you can add all of these variants on the lexeme by simply clicking the edit to add a new lemma, and you should be able to get a chance to include these on the form. The next is, can I enter different scripts of a lexeme? Yes, you can. You can add spellings of the same word in multiple scripts. So what this is explaining is some languages are written in multiple scripts. For example, Hausa is written in Arabic script and then also in the Latin characters. So you can do that. Other languages could be in Lebanese, and yeah, so many languages are written in various multiple scripts. So yeah, you can do that. Now, what if the dialect or script language code isn't supported? Like we explained earlier, some languages aren't fully supported on Wikidata yet, but that still shouldn't discourage you from creating the lexeme. You can always use the unsupported language code, which is MIS, and use that and go ahead and create your lexeme. And one other question that people ask a lot is, does quick statements work for lexemes? So this is yes and a no, because currently quick statements only work for lexeme level statements, which means you cannot edit lexemes at the forms level or at the sense level. You can only, add or remove statements on the lexeme level. Is it possible to query lexemes? Yes, it is possible. You can use the query service. It supports querying lexemes. At the moment, we have the other queries, the query builder, which currently doesn't support lexemes, but the query service itself fully supports querying lexemes. And here are some examples. You can click through and take a look at longest words in English, for example. And you can always get help to write your queries if you go to Wikidata request query. That concludes it. There are some few tools and resources that would make your life so much easier if you start to edit lexemes. So let's go through a few of them. The first one is a tool that was built by Lucas, one of my colleagues, in his spare time. It's called the Wikidata Lexeme Forms. And this allows you, so this is a form that allows you to create and generate lots of forms for your lexemes. So it can allow you to create new forms. And you just have to let Lucas know that you need this tool to support your language, and then you provide it with some details like what the past tense or the plural or and now would be in your language, and you can code that into a specific form for your language, and then you can use it to create and then add more forms to lexeme. The next tool was built by Asaf Bartov, who also works at the foundation, but I think he built this in his free time. This tool basically allows you to create usage examples, to add usage example statements on your lexeme, of course, as a lexeme level statement. So the way it does this is it looks through the dictionary of particular language of the lexeme and picks an example sentence, and then gives you the chance to look at the sentence, and then you choose the first one that would be a better representation for your lexeme. And then the tool allows you to make an edit, so you don't have to go to Wikidata to do it. You just have to use the tool, log in, and it makes the edits on your behalf. The next tool is Mishromilan, which Mahir builds, one of our active Wikidata community members. So what this does is it looks at other catalogs and compares that catalog with Wikidata, and then tries to see if there are some forms or senses in that catalog that do not exist on Wikidata. So one is able to make these comparisons, and then it pulls out some suggestions for you, and you can, the tool allows you to add those forms and senses on Wikidata. So it makes an edit on your behalf. Okay, then we have text to lexemes, which is one of the tools under ODIA. So there are a couple of tools under the ODIA URL. So this tool transforms some text into lexemes and then helps creating senses and forms. So it takes a chunk of text and then it converts this text into the various forms of a particular word. You know, tries to pull out all the forms from that text and then allows you to make an edit on Wikidata on your behalf. And then we have this interesting tool which would allow you, so it's called Lingua Libre. It allows you to record, make a recording of a sentence or of a word on Wikimedia Commons. And then you can always use this tool to create the words of the lexeme that you are working on, and then add it to your lexeme on Wikidata. And the property that you use would be the pronunciation audio, and then you simply pick the file name from Commons and put it as the value for that statement. And there's another tool which I didn't add here, which is more mobile friendly. It's called Spell for Wiki. That also, I think it currently only exists as an Android tool, and you can use that also to make recordings as OGG files, reference them, let's say, as pronunciation audio for a particular lexeme. And finally, some tools to reuse lexemes on Wikidata is the query service, of course. You can use it to ask complex questions like, you know, what are the longest words in English, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, the lexemes don't appear in the documentation for the query service yet. So it's a little bit of a you really need to know where to look in order to find help to query lexemes. There's also the Wikidata, the MediaWiki Action API that supports making requests to the request lexemes onto whatever page that you are calling it to. We are currently also working on the REST API, which also supports querying lexemes on Wikidata. I think that is all. No, 2 more slides, I think. So, no, there are various ways that you can get involved if you are just starting off. 1 slide, sorry. You can visit, no, forward. Yeah, this is fine. You can always, if you don't know how to or where to start or what to create, you can always check what lexemes already exist in your language of interest, and you can look through this help pages. You just have to go to Wikidata, data/how to help, and you can find something. For example, just adding sentences that doesn't exist already, or simply adding some more forms, or if you are focused on adding pronunciation videos, that is also good. So many things that you can do if you want to begin your journey onto editing Wikidata lexemes. I don't know how much time we have, and since we don't have a lot of in-person participants, I'm not sure, so we can simply just skip this. And yeah, that was it. Thank you. I don't suppose the online people have questions.
Ask questions.
Oh, there's no question.
All right.
You finish
right on time.
We need a prize.
Yeah.
No, no. Yeah, not recording them, recording them.
So when you switch off there, switches off.
It's not recording.
Oh, so